What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Ashley. We're back again. I am here with the husbabe.
What up, though?
There you go with his monotone. What up, though? You have joined us again. We're on our Journey of Love podcast. We are continuing our Family Edition series. Super excited about this series. Aren't you excited, babe?
Yeah. Well, we got some good storytelling and some good info and some knowledge.
Yes.
Some of that wisdom.
Yes.
As old folks say, wisdom.
I think sometimes it's always good to go backwards in order to go forward. I think sometimes you just have to take some lessons from, your past, learn from them so that you're better in the future. So that is part of the reason why we did our Family Edition series, where we're just kind of looking at our upbringing, our different upbringings, and how they affected how we view love, family, and relationships. So today, special guest, we have my father, Joseph Thomas.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hey, what up?
How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Glad to be here.
What's up, Pops?
So
hey. You're looking good in that cowboy shirt over there.
You right.
Lord, there I go with that
America.
cowboy stuff. What's your team again?
I'm a dirty bird. Born and raised in the ATL.
Sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't have a team. I don't really like football. I'm just, cheer for whoever. I guess I'm a Cowboys fan when I'm with my husband, and whoever fan when I'm with somebody else. I don't know. But
you're living in the ATL, so you're in the right place at the right time with the wrong team.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of backdrop because I know for our listeners who have been listening to us for a while, from previous episodes, you definitely heard me talk about how I was, brought up in a single parent household. So my father and I connected. I was, let me see. I think it was second semester. My freshman year at Hampton University, I want to say. It was somewhere around there. And so it was around 19 years old when my father and I connected. And we reconnected in a weird way from my perspective. Because simply, my intention when I reached out was because my father was in the military, which he'll tell you a little bit about himself in a second. And long story short, I needed insurance, and my insurance was out. And so I called. I got his number, called my mother, asked her if she had his information, and she did. And I simply called him, and I remember leaving you a voicemail. And the voicemail I know was very curt, very short, and I remember it saying, "Hey, this is Ashley, your daughter, just in case you forgot. I need this form filled out. You can send it to this address. There's no need to call me back." You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
I remember that. That was the voicemail.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting a call back. I got a call back. I was on my way to calculus class because I had a test that day, which I had to take the test over because I was so distracted I couldn't remember no formulas.
You were distracted off the phone call?
Yes, I was, because I wasn't expecting a call back. So he called me back, and we had a brief conversation as I headed to calculus class. And I got a calculus. I couldn't remember nothing.
Oh, Lord, she needed some milk.
I mean, nothing. And that's not like me. So my professor was like, what's going on? I said, listen, it's a lot going on today. I'm going to need to reschedule this test. Thankfully, he allowed me to do so because I was the honor student that I am. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was kind of how that's how we got connected. That was the first point. So I'll pause there. We'll get in deeper into that story. So I'm going to pause just to, again, welcome my dad and, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, what's your life about, what's popping in the streets.
Oh, man. Like I said earlier, I was born and raised in these streets of Atlanta in 1965.
In the streets of Atlanta.
So I'm one of those old school ATLians. Back in the day, born and raised, born at Greater Memorial Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty short. My growing up was, from my early childhood to I was about 12. My parents, especially my father, was kind of by my side while I played baseball, basketball, et cetera, et cetera. He started experiencing some medical issues. And then all of a sudden, when I hit 12, it's like everything stopped. I got no support. Throughout high school, I was very active. I even had the nickname of Prime Time because I played all 3 sports and I excelled at them. But when you kind of look up there and you never saw your parents supporting you through that 12th grade to the 18th, you had that. I had that wishful thing of going to college, and my dad kind of pushed me to the military. So right after high school, I was pretty much an A student, and I should have went to college somewhere and been playing some ball, but I ended up in the Navy somehow because my dad had said, "Son, you're gonna join the Navy and see the world," and I was really terrified of my father, and so I joined the Navy, and I went to a big old aircraft carrier, and that's where I met Ashlee's mother, Renee. I met her when we was in the shipyards at Newport News. I was, really wasn't looking for a relationship. You're really young in the military, and most military young guys, you go out, you'll find a girl, and then you'll jump to the next girl. So I was very immature. Really, never only had one girlfriend. While I was in high school, wasn't the one who went out and had that wild sex. Never drove until I was like really 19 and a half. So, I met her, and unexpectedly, the relationship started out great. I guess after 5 or 6 months, by that time I was, we wasn't seeing eye to eye, and we kind of went our separate ways until one day I got a call and said I was pregnant, and I was kind of surprised. And you kind of sit back and like, okay, really, she's seeing somebody on the side, and a lot of things go through your mind, and you just don't want, at the time you really want to deal with it, and you go to court and they say it's yours. To make a long story short. There are things that you do back when you're young, but when you're older, you start hitting your 40s, 45, you kind of wonder why you did those things. And all those things were wrong. But at the time, when you kind of look back, and you're like, what were you thinking when you did these things? So the things that I did wrong, I try to let my children do the same mistakes. Ashlee and her mom, they did a wonderful job raising her. I sent, you kind of look back and I see some of the issues that we had. And I don't want to go back and make any excuses and be long-winded. I know it's several times I wanted to reach out. My main concern was, I had got married. My first wife didn't see eye to eye, I guess, with her mother. Probably for some reasons, or she thought that I was trying to hook up, connect with her. And every time I wanted to reach out to her, it was like, some total resistance from that. So you don't want to rock the boat at the home, and you kind of like, okay, well, I have a life here, and so you do things, or you make the wrong decisions because you don't want to rock the boat. And when you look back now and you see yourself like, what the heck was I thinking? And I talked to a lot of young gentlemen who was in the same situation in the Navy as they go through the same thing, and I kind of sit them down and tell them, hey, don't make this mistake, because 15 and 20 years from now, you're going to be saying the same thing about what you should have did and the things that you missed. And you kind of like, hey, how did high school go? And so you missed all those days, even though I missed my son's events because I was in the Navy and away a lot. So you get to the point of you're already missing your kids at home because you're already in the Navy. So Ashlee, who's with her mom, she's in the same situation, but I'm still missing the other kids. So you kind of look back like, well, I'm missing everyone grow up. So everybody's the same. But you look back and again, you see how wrong it was. So I see the mistakes I made, and I tried to learn from them. And before I turn it back over to Ashlee and we continue this, one of my main issues was, when I reconnected back with Ashlee, you don't want to say the wrong thing, so you you're real quiet. What do I say? If I say this, she's not gonna call back for another couple of minutes. I mean, a couple of months or, even a year. So you kind of really reserved on what you really want to say because you don't want to go back to those deep, dark days, or you don't even want to talk about it. So when Ashlee asked me to do this segment, I said, you know what? I'm in my 50s now. Maybe I can help someone not make the same mistakes. So she asked me this. My first thing was like, this is my daughter. I wasn't there for her in a younger age. I need to do this, even though I don't want to do this and put myself out here to the world. But, maybe we can bind ourselves closer after this, or maybe I can help somebody else in the same boat.
Well, time heals all wounds.
Well, that's the saying, but sometimes that's
if you put the effort to
I was just about to say, you got to put in the effort to still. Yeah.
Because, as you was talking, it sounded like all the stories are true about, guys in the Navy, the Army, and all that. Just out there, just young and impressionable, and just get this tail out here, and then you just, okay, I'm back on this ship, and then it's like, okay, you're trying to leave it behind, but, okay.
Yeah, I think the Navy as an organization is changing from when I came in the early 80s. You had a lot of drug use back then. You had a lot of alcohol usage. And, I stayed away from that. I never drank. I never had any alcohol. But, one of the main reasons why I pretty much stayed away from it, even though I saw my Navy buddies doing it, was because, my upbringing was, I saw a lot of drug and alcohol usage in my house. So when you're seeing that growing up and your parents, too much alcohol and your brothers and sisters, use of drugs, it just made me look at myself and say, that's something I don't want to do. So, my upbringing was kind of hard, but, I was still at home with my two parents, so I still had a definite advantage on people who had single parents. So I can't complain about that. So I, still had 2 to 3 squares a day, and I still had it a lot better than most kids, even though I would consider my upbringing not normal. But it was not normal to me. But if you look at my situation with somebody else, Ashlee would say, hey, you had a normal upbringing because you had your two parents. But sometimes that's, it doesn't fit for everybody.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because, nowadays it's like, what is a normal upbringing besides the ones who are privileged?
Yeah, because we talked about this in one of the other series. Like, I think society just has an idea of what the norm should be. It should be a 2-parent household. While I, somewhat agree with that, I somewhat don't. Because if I had a choice between a toxic 2-parent household and a single-parent household where it's sanity, I want sanity. That's what I want. So you kind of have to look at not just the number of parents in the household, but you have to look at the entire atmosphere and environment that you're bringing that child up in, because if it's chaotic, single or together, it's still gonna be a mess,
right?
So
yeah, but I guess that's how society was. I mean, society changes. The 60s, 70s, 80s, you had that 2-parent concept, and if you didn't have that, no matter how the man treated the woman usually stayed, because that was society's answer to family upbringing, was 2 parents. It started changing in the early 2000s, like, hey, wait a minute, I can do this all by myself, and I want to bring a relationship in here to bring down my kids. So, society kind of tell us which way to go, and we kind of sometimes follow society instead of doing the right thing for that family member.
Right. And I think also going into, I guess, this new decade we're about to go into, we're, I guess, our millennial age, we're trying to change the narrative, and say, yes, the old school way might not have been the right way, because, that's kind of was embedded in us. No, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, because that's what we did. What we was taught. And, society has changed, and, as we get older, we tend not to like change. So, it's that ongoing struggle of, trying to change with new breed, with the old school.
That is exactly right, and you hit the hammer on the nail. when they're that age of 18 or 34, you guys, you want to change the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get that age of, in your mid 40s and early 50s, you don't like change so much. You like structure. Hey, this is the way it was, and this is the way it's always been. If you worked at Sears and Roebuck or you worked at Microsoft, you did that for 30 years. And you did, no matter what happened, you did it for 30 years to take care of your family, and you did not venture out for it. Mm-hmm. The millennials, again, that 18 to 34 year group, it's changing the way we do things, the outcome. And it's really hard for someone my age to kind of look back and like, what are you doing? But
living life.
Yeah, living exactly. You guys are living
traveling.
Life.
We doing us.
And I guarantee us, my friends my age, we're looking at you on social media like, where's she at again? And we kind of look back at our lives when you guys are doing that. It's like, wait a minute. Why wasn't we doing that when in the 30s?
I have no clue. I don't know why I won't.
Exactly. We was always structured. That's what we did. We stayed home and we made the money for the family, and we did things that was inside that box, and we never thought outside that box.
Yeah.
But you guys' age, I look at you all the time, and I'm like, wow. It just is. Sometimes it's just overwhelming seeing you guys on social media and see how you've evolved. Even having the single parent household, how you evolved over the years and how you overcame some of your struggles and obstacles. I kind of sit back and like, hey, I wish I was there so she had somebody else to lean on to overcome some of the obstacles, especially when she got out of high school, 16 and 17 in college. And, you regret it, but you try to move on and do the right thing, and you try to change yourself. But you've grown into a beautiful young lady, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Aww. Doesn't hurt having a good husband, too.
Yes. God bless with a good husband. So you mentioned a little bit about your upbringing and how you consider it to be a little rough. So could you tell us what or how your family expressed love towards one another, and like what you kind of gleaned and what you learned and how you then expressed towards other people?
My family, again, there was no expression of love.
Okay. So no hugs and I love yous, none of that?
None of that.
Okay.
I know my mom's not going to listen to this podcast.
That seemed to be the trend, ain't
it? Yeah.
It was...
I don't love you, nigga.
It was hard. It was one of those days you kind of remember you getting up, and my dad made just enough in my household with my mom combined income of not having a free lunch. We were just above that line, that middle class, so I had to pay for my lunch. So there was plenty of times that I went without because my dad didn't leave my lunch money, my mom didn't leave it, and I would go to school hungry, and I would go to football. I would go to all my sports throughout the year. Most of the time, I never ate lunch. I would get home like 7 at night. So the last time I had 8 was like maybe 7 at night until 7, get morning. So I would go 24 hours, 4 to 5 times a week without eating somebody. That's why I was a little 6 foot skinny guy, because I couldn't, I just couldn't gain any weight because I wasn't eating, and no one was paying attention. There were several times when my daddy was very, very abusive. He was abusive to my 2 older sisters. My brother, he drank. My mom abused alcohol. My brother, my older brother, who's 2 years senior than me, he abused alcohol. He abused drugs. I remember several times he used to come home and he was on one of his high binges, and my dad used to get him and put him in the bathtub and put him in the shower and run the water, and he's cussing them out, and you kind of remember all those things, and so you see all that, and you want to stray away from it. You just you're scared in your own home. My dad used to lock up. We used to have a second refrigerator outside where he used to keep the sodas, the sweets. But he used to lock it up on a locker, and it's like, okay, you can eat it, but no one else can eat your sweets. And I'm here as a kid, like, this can't be right. I can't eat the sweets or the sodas because he's locking them up. My mom's trying to, to be on my side that says, hey, that's not right. And, that fight becomes that. And and you're in your room and you hear your parents fighting, and you just kind of ball up in your room. So that's the kind of lifestyle I grew up in. And when I joined the Navy at 18. I said earlier, I was in the Navy for 34 years. Within that time, no one in my family member never sent me one letter. I repeat, one letter. It was kind of hard when, you had that mail call and people getting gifts. And, that's just the way my family was. The only time we really got together is when we had a funeral. And every time we have a funeral, it's always I'm the one that's doing the speeches. I'm the one that's trying to bring everyone together because of the mistakes that I made. So I'm trying to tell everybody, hey, this is not right. We got to do this better. And you try your best. So to answer your question, my childhood was not fun. But then again, I had a roof on my head, and I had food to eat at times, especially on the weekend. I would try to make up for it, or I would usually leave on that Friday and get on the first bus and go to my grandma. Because one thing about my grandma, she gonna have food. She gonna cook, and she gonna have food for days. She didn't have much, but she got her government cheese and her food stamps, so she always had food. So that's where I was on the weekend, and then last Sunday night I gotta go back home. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm going back to this. So that's kind of how my lifestyle was in my early teens.
So where did you develop the okay, this is love? Was it somebody? Was your grandma was the one that was giving it to you? You had to give it somewhere.
Well, no.
Did you just learn by trial and error? Like, man, I should be saying I love you, and I should.
I just learned by
old
trial
80s
and error.
movies.
I mean, yeah, you would see some movies. You would see people make certain mistakes. I never really had a mentor that tells me, hey, this is what you should be doing. I just did what I thought was right and what I saw in the movies or what I heard from somebody. Because I wasn't the type of person I was very outgoing, but I'm not going to ask you about what I should be doing because everybody always looked up to me and thought I knew what I was doing, but I didn't because I was always had that face on fooling everybody, especially in the Navy, because I worked so hard. And they thought I had my stuff together. But once I left that job, I didn't have it together. But I didn't want anybody to know it. So, I guess I had that joker, that poker face on that just pretty much fooling people.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, fake it till you make it. That was me. And it worked for me. Well, it worked to a certain extent. But,
right. You knew how to play the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Do you want to take another question? Or you want me to chime on in?
Oh, no, you good. Okay.
Oh, okay. I felt the question coming from you. I was like, oh, is it one simmering?
I felt, should I be saying more?
No. So I guess my question to you would be, before you and I connected, what were your feelings towards me, even though like you never spent time with me or anything like that? Like, was there did you love me before you met me, or like what was that feeling like? What was that like? Was it just like I wonder what she's doing, or is she walking yet, is she talking yet, like what was that like?
Good question. I don't think there's one day that didn't go by I was always wondering what you were doing, how you doing in school, when you got older, what boyfriends you were doing. I was trying to be a good husband and good father to the kids, to the two boys that I was growing up with. And, I always wanted that girl to be with me because I always looked around like, God, it would be great to have a daughter here with me 24/7. And you missing all those things. There was, every night, I'm one of the type of people that say their prayers every single night. And every single night, I just say a prayer about you, have the Lord to cover you and to keep you safe. And, I always ask them, hey, to bring us together. But I wasn't doing anything to bring us together. Even though I was asking the Lord to bring us together, my actions were saying different because I was always, if I reached out and I talk to your mom and say, hey, I wanted this, I know it was going to be, it was, the outcome wasn't going to be good. And I kind of use that as an excuse, like, well, if I asked her, if I want her to bring it in the summer, you know, she's going to take me through the ringer and she's not going to do this. And being in the Navy, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm just going to keep it 100. You know, kind of being in the Navy, and especially when I became an officer, you don't want people like calling your command saying, hey, this person is not doing what he's supposed to do. Even though I sent the little child support I never missed, that still wasn't enough. So you kind of look back like, well, I sent her a little child support every month, and that's really nothing, but that's what they told me to send. But I should be doing more. But you know, but I didn't. But I just wanted to, as an officer, I was always looking clear cut, and you was always, you know, everywhere I went, I was always the only, you know, brown, black skin in that particular. So you kind of want to not do things that's going to bring you out, because everybody else is always looking at you to make mistakes, or you're going to do something like they perceive others to do. So I was always kind of...
You was protecting that image.
Yeah, I was. Oh, yeah, I was definitely protecting the image, because if I reached out, I thought that image would be tarnished. Because I knew that me and her mom would not get together, but we could overcome some of our facts. But I just...
It was that fear, that unknown fear.
It was that unknown fear that, hey, if I reach out, this is going to be like, you know, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for me. So I, you know, in the back of my mind, I was justified in, you know, not reaching out a lot of times.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, I guess because it was, you know, comfortable, I would guess. And you know, all right, this is something I can control my end. And so you just, okay, stuck with it.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember a couple of times when I reached out for it. I don't even know if Ashlee even know that. You know, I would call her mom, and you know, we would get into some heated arguments, and I would say, "Hey, let's meet," or, you know, "Can I do this?" And there was, you know, there was that, you know, no, well, I'm gonna come up, me and my wife. No, your wife ain't coming with you. You know, my wife is kind of hearing this in the background. If you going up there, I'm going up there. So you're trying to convince your wife, like, no, let me handle this. No, I'm your wife. If you're going, I'm going. So then again, you're like, okay, I don't want to piss off the wife, and you know, that was my excuse at the time. You know, okay, I'm gonna piss off that this is not going to go well, and I can remember only one instance. I think Ashlee was right around 12 years old. I only remember she remembered this is when I was on the base, and her mama brought her up to the base. And she had got out of the car, and I had gave her a hug, and then it didn't go so well, and I can't remember the events, but all I remember is Renee, Ashlee getting back in the car and leaving, and you know, I kind of vaguely remember, you know, that day. It's like, okay, every day is always going to be like this. You know, I ain't gonna win this situation. And I guess at that point, I was like, you know, I'll just wait till she's 18 and try to win it. Again, it wasn't the right thing to do, but that was the right answer for me at that time. And also trying to protect that image as we move forward. Yeah.
So, how was it after you reconnected?
You mean when she was a freshman in college? Oh man,
challenging.
Yeah, it was a challenge. Yeah, you know, every time I talked to her, I was like, yeah, that's my child. Because we had the same attitude.
And stubborn.
And so stubborn. But I had to hold mine back, and I had to take hers. But it was so hard for me, you know, bite my lips, like, you know, no, you shouldn't be saying that, or you shouldn't be doing that, or you should give me the chance. But I understood her feelings, so I always held back because, again, when I said it early in the segment, I never wanted to say the wrong thing to her because I think it was going to chase her off, and it was just so hard. You know, I would talk to her on the phone, then I would, after 10 minutes, I didn't know what else to say. You know, kind of like a lot of silence because I wanted to protect not saying something stupid, because I know that may blow her off, and then I'm going to lose my daughter for a second time. And I kept on telling myself, well, maybe in a couple of years, too, I think it would be better. Maybe she will understand my side and understand, hey, I screwed this up, but I'm trying to make amendments. But you never know. So it was a challenge, to say the least.
But you knew there was going to be a challenge, though.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did. But
So-
you kind of see.
I don't think he probably knew it would be as challenging as it was.
He probably didn't know. He just,
Yeah,
it was just
he just knew it would be a
unknown.
challenge. I'm just assuming, because I know I was very difficult, but I was also very hurt, and so I wasn't going to let you in. Like, I just wasn't, So I know it was probably more challenging than you anticipated. And and I think you probably endured more from me, because I was in a place where, like, no, you don't just get to walk back in here and just pick up and just act like nothing happened. Like, you don't get to do that. So if you want to be here, you're going to work for this position. Like,
He played basketball. He knows.
And you kind of look at Hollywood. Hollywood, I always have these fairy tale endings that when people get back together. But I can talk about one time, and again, I kind of block out some of the bad memories that I had. But I remember one instance. This was probably my wife. Now we've been together, married 13, been together, dated for about 4 years. So I guess it may have been. I think we just got married in 2006, I think it was. And I was laying in the bed, and I did something wrong on the phone, or I said something wrong. I forgot how it was, but I was wrong, and I was trying to cover it with my wife, my wife now. Then somehow they got into a shouting match. She thought somebody else was on the phone, and then Ashley thought something, then her and Ashley blew up, and I was like, but I knew I was wrong and I created it, but I didn't want to, and I don't know if you even remember.
Oh, I remember that.
Oh, you did?
Absolutely remember that.
Okay, so
absolutely.
So she remembered that, but it wasn't my present wife. This was my second wife that was there, and again, she's loved by all. She never said something wrong. She's always tried to get me. She's the one when I got remarried. You need to go to your daughter. You need to do this. You need to get that. You need to do this. You need that. Your daughter needs you. So she was always the one that was pushing me. Hey, you got a daughter in college. This and that. And I, so the events that went down, it's like, okay, I was so mad. I was like, no one has ever been mad at this woman because she's just the sweetest. I remember that event setting me back because I was like, you know what? I ain't even going to explain what happened because. And again, I blocked it out of my mind. So I remember that event setting us back. And I know it took us a couple of years to kind of maneuver around that.
And I'm glad you admitted that you covered because that's exactly what you did. Yeah. And actually, you gave me an ultimatum. I don't know if you remember that part since you blocking out stuff. You actually gave me an ultimatum.
Okay, what was that? The
ultimatum was you told me that I need to stop talking reckless to your wife, even though she started it. And you said, so either you stop or this ends. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. I'll end it for you. And I hung up. That was the ultimatum that was given.
Okay.
Yep. So that's what set us back.
I definitely blocked that one out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
They remember what they want to remember, huh?
Well,
that was traumatizing.
If she said that happened, I'm sure it happened.
To the point that I was in my grandparents' house, and I love my grandparents, never do anything to respect them. But to the point I'm in my grandparents' house cussing, that was serious. To the point that my mother could not calm me down. My mother's the one person who can calm me down. Mother could not calm me down. Livid.
Yeah, she was livid that day, and
so everybody was livid.
Yeah, that's the only day I seen Juana get mad. And that's the maddest I ever seen her in my 17 years. And it's like two people I love, we kind of at it. I remember getting off the phone like, what the heck just happened? Mm-hmm. And I was like, if she only knew that this woman, my wife, was on her side. But you kind of like, again, you block it off like, hey, hey, I tried and we'll try it again, whenever she's ready. That's the kind of thing you say. Even though I'm the oldest and I'm the dad, I don't want to shit be pushing more. And the funny thing about this is when you watch, say, I don't know, some of these court shows, not Judge Judy, but the rest of the court shows will be on, and and the absentee fathers come on there, and the kids is like, hey, well, you wasn't there, and you kind of looking like, oh man, they talking about me. And you see all those shows, you even see them on TV now, and it kind of brings me back. But I always try to think about the good memories and not the bad memories. But this is 2019, and hopefully we continue to go forward. And I love her. She's my daughter, and she's my only daughter. So I love her to death. So I made her, me and her mom. So I just want to continue on and live life with her and see her grow.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. You got a real dad here. So, once you got that over that bumpy, maybe that's too soft, hilly mountain Olympus,
Tumultuous.
a reconnection. When did you feel like, okay, we're getting to a steady pace, a steady road here?
Okay.
Do you feel like you have? Or
okay, I can take you back to the day that I felt. This is probably the happiest day of my life.
All right, let me hear this one.
Well, you definitely know the date. Do you? What's the most important date that you remember? Other being born.
My wedding day.
Okay. Your wedding day. It was probably, I don't know, 3 weeks before your wedding day. Me and Ashlee had a conversation, and she was straightforward. I know it was hard for her. She was like, I was always wondering, all right, who's gonna walk her down the aisle. It's gonna be her granddad, because he's been there. He's rightfully the one that should walk her down. And I was like, okay, I just gotta get through this and used to it, and just get over me and say, well, he's definitely one that should walk her down, and I can get the first dance. I'm like, I said to myself, I'm fine with that. Then that day she called me, but she
time out. Would you have been fine either way?
Yes, because I had got to that point that I was like, hey, this is her day. This is the day she's going to remember for the rest of her life. Not, graduating from high school or college or anything. When she walks down the aisle and get married, this is the day she's going to remember the most. So I was fine with it, and I thought he was more deserving. I talked through it with my wife, too. I said, you know what? This is the time I wish things were different, because I should be walking her down, but I haven't earned the right to walking her, even though you're the father. You didn't earn. You still got to earn that right, and I hadn't earned the right, so I was fine with it. But the day she decided I was going to walk her down the aisle, boy, woo.
Look at God.
You was like, well, I was. You know what? That's what my wife says all the time. Look at God, and that's the first thing she said. Look at God, okay? And she looked at me and like, don't screw this up. I was like, oh, well,
That was definitely a guy moment. Because if it was left up to me, I don't know if it would have worked out that way, to be honest. So that whole day was just God ordained in ways that I don't think a lot of people really know. I just want to piggyback off your question, babe, where you were asking like when it smoothed out. So I know for me, we had, as we've already stated, a rocky start, and it was a long start. And me and you went back and forth. I don't necessarily want to say fighting, maybe in intense debates.
Okay.
For years. All right, we were both stubborn. We were both want to get our point across, and we both felt the way that we felt, and it wasn't changing. And there were a lot of times where throughout that process I would just get so frustrated, and I was like, I am done. Like, I'm done. And I don't know if this will surprise you or not, my mother was always the one that's like, that's your father, you have to work on. I'm like, I don't have to do nothing. stay black and die. That's all I got to do. Okay? I ain't got to do none of that. True tea, you know? So, you know, she was really the one that's like, all right, you got to work through all that. You got to work through this. You got to work through that. You got to work through that. So my mother was a big part as to why I was interested in keep pursuing the situation. And I think for me, that whole period, because this was years and years that we were going back and forth, it was a time of growth for me because honestly, I had this idea of what a father should be based on my grandfather, based on what I've seen, you know, from my peers. Mm-hmm. Of course, TV always plays a part in that. And so when you came back in my life and you didn't match up to the expectations that I had set of what a father should be, that pissed me off further. Because it's like, well, you're not even doing, like, what are you doing? You ain't doing nothing. So it was that, having to, one, get rid of the unrealistic expectations, and to really come to a place where I accept you for the person that you are at face value. That took a long time for me. And to really understand that, because I know I always told you that I crave authenticity. And I always told you that I needed you to be real in order for this to work. And you already spoke about, you know, the image that you were trying to uphold and do all that. That never sat well with me. Mm-hmm. And I know we went back and forth a couple of times about that too. It's like, I'm not dealing with your image. And the one quote that I always love is that you should never be a public success and a private failure. And that quote is powerful to me because I'm like, all right, here you are, the successful African-American man in the Army in a high-ranking position. But, I mean, Navy, I said Army, you know, I done switched whole services.
It's all military.
In the Navy. In the Navy. But I'm like, but your relationships are a mess. So for me, from my perspective, it's like, I can never show you the respect that the other people are showing you because I know the background behind that. And I see the facade, and this is not working for me, you know. So there were a lot of things that I had to kind of work through. Even when Philmore and I started dating, there were times where I would get off, like we would have a conversation, I would get off the phone with you, and I'd just be pissed. I'd be like, I just can't, like, he's just annoying me, he's not doing this. And I would take that out on Philmore. And so one time Philmore just set me down. He was like, babe, listen, you cannot do this. Like, you have to just forgive for real, once and for all. Because I did notice once he pointed out to me that every time that I would have a conversation, and it's not necessarily that we had a bad conversation. Mm-hmm. It was just that I still had certain expectations in my mind that weren't being met. Mm-hmm. And exactly. I would take that out on him. And one of the things that helped me to get to really a point of forgiveness was I had to understand that this was closer to when you and I were getting married, Phil. So forgiveness was going to be a huge part of the marriage, a huge part of it. And that I have to always be in a state of forgiveness because at the end of the day, nobody is perfect. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to make mistakes, intentional or unintentional. It's going to happen. And so I think at that point was the really time where I really had to really learn how to authentically forgive and not just say, yeah, I forgive you, just, but to really forgive. And so by him pointing my reactions out, I had to deal with that. And in turn, I was able to, for real, forgive you and not that fake forgiveness that I thought I had already given you. So I know that was huge for me. The whole process, it was, like I said, it was just a lot of life lessons. And I think that part of why I went on so long, again, because we were both stubborn. Nobody was bending. Anybody who knows me, I do not bend. I'm not. And if I do, I'm not going to be the first one.
Hold on.
You'll bend first, and then I might consider it. So, I said all that to say that who's ever listening is that forgiveness is going to be a huge part of any relationship, but
specifically if it's dealing with an absentee father who hasn't been there. And it has to be true forgiveness, to not have any unrealistic expectations for that person, and to just let it blossom. So that's what I would say about that.
It's powerful.
It is. Mm-hmm. And, me being the one on the outside looking in, the first time I met you, just watching you, because I observe a lot of people, I'm an observer. Mm-hmm. I instantly was like, It was like identical. I was like, that is her daddy. I was like, that's your daddy. I saw so much, because me knowing Renee for so long, that's all I saw. And yes, I see her so much in her, but it was I never met you, so I didn't know what was you like. But when I met you and just saw your character and your mannerism, I was like, oh, that is it. That's where she gets it from. Oh. That's where that is.
I can be good and bad.
Yeah,
I did find it funny that a lot of personality traits I took from you, and I didn't realize that until, of course, we reconnected. Even my brother, poor thing, we acted alike in some ways too. And I just think that's funny how that worked out, considering I wasn't around for 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. How that still worked out.
But I told you numerous of times, hey, you just like me. And you would always argue with me like, no, I'm not. I said, you'll figure it out sooner or later. But
yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, for a person looking out, on the outside looking in, she's your baby.
Sheesh.
Some things you be telling me, and I'd be like, that's something you do.
Yeah. But would she admit it? That's the hard part.
Depends on what it is. Depends on what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what kind of advice would you alluded to it earlier, what would you give, what do you say to the young guys who are, been in similar situations as far as, being absentee, trying to reconnect after you connected the process? So what is some things that you advise?
I give you some examples, even recent examples. My younger son, her brother, Charles.
Shout out to Charles.
Yeah, he's he's kind of like me also, but not as much as Ashley is. He's not married, and he had a child, and you don't know how many times I've talked to Charles and son Romero about spending more time with a kid. Don't be that absentee father. That your kids are not living with you, but you need to do this and that, because if you don't do it, you're gonna regret it. There's no excuses. There's no making up. So you either do it now, because when they're 6, and then all of a sudden you look around, they're 12. Where have you been? What have you done? So sometimes we get so focused on our career, trying to pay the bills, trying to move ahead, we kind of forget the kid that's not actually living with you, because you don't want to mess up what you have at the house, or if that's not an excuse. So my biggest advice for her is you have to stay in your kid's life. I don't care if it's a boy or girl, you have to stay in your kid's life, because you're going to be just like the rest of us old timers. We're going to sit back and like, man, I should have did more of this. And I try to tell even the young guys in the Navy, I saw this, it's happened to them. So, hey, I'm telling you, if you don't spend the time with your kids, and those times you can never get back. So, that's the biggest advice I can give somebody. And I would like to also say is, don't let anybody come between you and your kids. Okay?
Say it again for the people in the back.
Hey, don't let nobody become between you and your kids relationship. Okay. For the betterment of, your at-home relationship.
Right.
You need to have that continuous commitment. Okay. Not just a phone call, but you have to have a commitment to be in your child's life, because the only one is losing is that child and you at the end of the day. All these people saying, well, she should have did this. And then, some on her side, well, he should have did that. You two are the only one losing. And, again, no one sit me down and kind of like told me this. My mom was like, well, how's your daughter Ashley doing? I don't know, Mama. Just give a call. Why you asking me? Just call her and say how she doing. Well, I'm going to call her. So no one reached out to her. I didn't reach out to her. And it really started getting to me when I married Joanna. Because Joanna was the only one that ever pushed me, like, you need to get in your child's life. She's doing A, B, and C, and half the kids that are not doing it, and you see it every day. You need to be in your child's life. I'm just saying. That's all she say that like every week. She'll finish like, I'm just saying. And then she'll look at me and she'll walk away. So it always resonated on me like, damn, I need to be more. So that's when that pressure started kicking me in. Because I probably can say she was probably my mentor of, hey, you need to do that. Mm-hmm. You need to be a bigger man. Yeah, she's stubborn, but I raised my kids as a single mom. You need to do this because, their fathers wasn't there. They didn't do it. Trust me, you need to be there. Mm-hmm. And, she still say it today. So when you asked that question earlier about a mentor, the only mentor I had was pretty much sitting down with her, because she would be the only one to tell me, like, hey, boy, you screwing this up. Mm-hmm. She would be, my mom wouldn't say it. She the only one that would sit down and tell me. So she's the only one that pushed me in this right direction. Mm-hmm. But, I still got to do it. You can push me, but I still got to make it right. So that's why I've been trying to do it, but it's been slow.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, nothing, we're all human, and I think that, us being human, we all need somebody. Mm-hmm. We got somebody to give us another opinion, to look at something on the other side. And, there's nothing wrong that you just got to find somebody that, does it for you. And I'm glad that she was
call
there.
You out.
Right. Right. Then that's the bigger thing. That lets you know when they're on your side. Mm-hmm. When they call you out, tell you that you're wrong. Yeah. To give you a different perspective, so you can have that push, because, we can, think in our own head that we're right all the time, but
that's me. That's definitely me.
But sometimes we're not he's right.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So
I always thought I was half right, even though I was wrong.
I don't even know how that goes. But
that was the old me. I got rid of that one.
Okay. Well, people change like the leaves out here now.
Yeah.
So
I think the other piece of advice, I just thought about something too, specifically for those who grew up without a father. And this goes back to my teenage years, that one of my excuses that I loved to use when I got in my trouble and my fights and all this other stuff.
Yeah, she was a fighter.
Okay, check the record. I still got them hands today.
I heard that.
One of the things because I was an angry teenager for a lot of reasons, but one excuse that I love to use was my father in here. So I got a reason to be angry. I got a reason to fight you. I got a reason to lay my hands on you because he ain't here. And I really had to get to a point. I think it was around junior year when I had to get my life together. Because, colleges started looking around junior year. And I was like, all right, I can't keep fighting because I'm going to be working at Kroger for the rest of my life.
Not next to me.
Be at Kroger for the rest of my life. You 46, still a cashier. I would definitely say that if you find that you're in a situation where you're in a single parent home, don't use the absence of a parent, whether it's your mother or a father, as a crutch or as an excuse as to why you can't do something. I had to get rid of that excuse because at the end of the day, I could not be 2021 still fighting and then be in jail, be like, oh, my daddy ain't here. They ain't trying to hear that. And that's true. So I had to make a decision early on. You're like, you know what, Ashley? He's not here. You can't change it. It's just, it is what it is.
make the best of this situation. Let's go out here and crush your dreams and get it moving. Like, there cannot be an excuse anymore. So, yeah, that's my other little tip.
That's a good point.
Yeah, look at that, dropping dimes out here.
You know, a little wisdom.
There it is. The more you know.
So this was a really good episode. Any final words from anybody?
No, I would like to thank my daughter and her husband for inviting me for this important series. You know, hopefully someone out there in Radio Land will learn something and take something from this and learn from it, and they can talk to their significant others, and somebody else can learn for it. So we just continuously, cut that chain off of us.
Yes.
And try to do the right thing. So I'm gonna continue trying to do the right thing. I'm human. I'm continue to make some mistakes, but hopefully, I'm learning from it, and my mistakes are gonna be a lot smaller. Than just having this conversation for almost the last hour now. It's made me kind of reshape even the way I was before I walked into the radio station.
Nice.
So, I got some things to talk about to my wife when I get back home and say, hey, I should be doing this, or maybe I should be doing this, or maybe I should be doing this to the grandkids to kind of help and mold them and kind of be more of a father figure to everybody, because I'll be the first one to point out your flaws. But I don't want nobody else to tell me about my flaws. That's the way I've always been. So, again, it's tough. And I think my wife told me that a couple of weeks ago. You don't ever want to hear nobody else's opinion about you. And now I think about it, I'm like, yep, you're right. So I need to change that. So if my wife is out there and say, hey, thank you for that conversation, and I'm gonna try to do better. And I'll finish out and say, Ashlee, she was very upfront, and I appreciate her letting me know how she felt and some of the struggles and obstacles that she had to get through when I was an absentee father. But I love her. She's done great, and the best thing she can do. I tell the kids, the most important thing in your life that you gotta get right, because if you don't get this right, everything else gonna be bad. And if you decide to marry someone, make sure you get that right. It just makes life a lot more easier.
Yes, God.
Yeah, and she found a godly man, and I don't like to say luck, but a lot of other people say you're lucky to find a good man. So I'd like to thank Mr. Epps for being a great husband to my daughter.
You trying to butter me up?
No, remember, I ain't changed that much. I'm keeping it real.
Okay, I appreciate that, man. I'm glad that I felt the energy in the room, and we felt like we made some strides today.
Yeah,
and that's good. Positivity.
Yes, I love it.
Okay, cool.
So, another great episode in our family series. Super, super duper excited. We just want to thank all our listeners out there again for tuning in to our episodes on a weekly basis. Again, you can find us on all our social media outlets. As Philmore likes to say, we are on
everything.
We on everything. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean. We on all of it. So be sure to check us out on all those social media outlets.
Subscribe.
Subscribe, like, comment, any questions, any feedback. Please feel free to let us know. But until next time, everybody, remember, love is patient, love is kind. We'll see you all here next time. Peace.
Cool.